Okay, so I've sewn all the way around the top with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now, if you haven't already trimmed the foam like I did earlier, and you've got the foam to the edge, you do need to trim down to the stitching, making sure you don't cut the stitching. However, obviously I have trimmed the foam. Now on this side, the handmade label is holding the foam up in place. On this side there isn't anything. It's unlikely to fall down like that. I mean, I think everything's going to stay in place. However, just for peace of mind, I'm going to just add a little bit of glue in the middle to hold it in place. And what we need to do now is, if you've used, for instance, cotton fabric, you'll be fine just to leave the seam allowance as it is. But because I want to reduce the bulk, having learnt my lesson in the previous bag, I am going to trim down to 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. I will sort that out rather than you sitting and watching me, and then we'll come back. So I've trimmed around the top, and now it's time to birth the bag. So we need to grab the vinyl bottom and pull that through, and once you've got that through, the rest of it sort of follows quite easily, as you can see. Now at this stage, if I felt it was necessary, I would iron the lining, but it looks fine actually. But we do need to seal the bottom. So what we need to do first, so that we get a nice neat closure, is to iron the seam. And I just want to give this side a little press where the slip pocket is. I'm just looking for my double-sided tape. Oh, it was attached by my phone. It was hiding underneath there, so when I picked that up, it was attached to it because it's a bit tacky on the edges. So find the end of the tape and then stick it quite close to the edge. Because if you stick it too far into the seam, you'll end up with quite a sort of stiff edge inside. If I'm explaining myself properly, I'll show you in a minute. If I can get the end off the plastic. My granddaughter can do this in a second because she's got very thin nails, being a child. There we go. Right, and now we just want to stick the edges together nice and evenly so we've got no overhang on either side. I'm sorry if we've got heavy breathing on your on your screens. I have asthma and COPD, and so I get quite breathless at times. So I do apologise if ever you're hearing, but that's why. So there we have it. That's the, I've got a little bit of thread poking out. That's it closed together. Now, if once we've stitched it, the bag bottom will go together, or sorry, will open up quite nicely, like so. But if you put the tape too far inside, it wouldn't, you'd end up with a ridge like sort of that, if I'm explaining myself correctly. So do stick it as close to the edge as you can. And then I'm just going to quickly stitch across to close it. There we have it, stitched along the edge, and now we can poke it inside. And because I used vinyl on the inside top, you do have to sort of fight with it to keep it down a bit. But because I've reduced the bulk, that will help considerably. Now, I've got to top stitch around the top very carefully, but you need to make sure that you've rolled the seam inwards slightly, because if you stitch it with the seam on top, you'll have that, it looking like that, which is okay. But if you slightly roll it, you've got that on top, which I think looks nicer. So if you do that all the way around, and then we'll come back to attach the connectors. Right, so I've top stitched around the edge of the bag, and before we put the top edge connectors in, we need to add the press studs at the side if you're doing them. You may choose not to put them in which case your bag will always be like that, but if you put them in, you can do that with your bag, making a nice shape on the end. So just move my green machine out of the way. To do the press studs, now they're like posh cam snaps, that's what I call them, and this is what you want. They come in sets, and you have 4 pieces to do one snap. I got a lovely assortment of colours for mine. Although I've added silver hardware, I'm going to use black snaps, so again they sort of get hidden amongst the vinyl, just because I don't want them to stand out. So I'm camouflaging them a little bit. So we need to mark, and you need to mark with your ruler from the top, and I'm measuring from the top stitch line rather than the top of the bag, and it's 1.5 inches down and then 1 inch from the seam. So I've marked both pieces there, and the same on the other side. I will add at this point, I'm not very happy with my top stitching that I've done. It's pretty horrendous for me. I'm very, very particular about my top stitching, and if I show you, where is it? I've got to find it. Well, anyway, I don't know if you can just see, I just slightly go up a bit there, that I don't like. However, I don't need to worry, because these connectors are going to hide it, thankfully. Otherwise I would have unpicked, and I would have used my hairdryer, or I would have tested it, a piece of the vinyl on with an iron using my Teflon pressing mat, and I would have, in fact I did, I tested it on a scrap of vinyl to make sure that it didn't melt or anything like that, and it didn't. The shiny vinyls do melt, they're horrendous, so I'd never ever put an iron anywhere near that, even through the heat press. But this one would have been okay to iron, and you can actually get rid of the puncture wounds from previous stitching if you needed to. But yeah, so I'm not super proud of my top stitching on this bag. I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I know many of you think I'm a bag stitching guru. I'm not. I'm just like you, and I make mistakes and I do bad stitching, just like all of us do. We have good days and bad days. Today I had a bad day with the top stitching. But yes, like I said, the connectors are going to hide that for me, thankfully. So now I need to set the right hole. Now there's many tools for piercing holes in your bags. With the press studs came these punches, which they're good, and use a hammer with them, but they're not great to go through cotton. If you've got soft fabrics, they don't pierce them, not always, and I can bang, 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 bang with a hammer, and so they're not brilliant. They're great for leather and vinyl and so on, but for softer fabrics, they don't tend to go through them. But I never use them ever because I don't need to, because I've got other things that do a better job. One is one of these. These are great. However, there have been times when you cut through, it goes off centre with one of these. It's not 100% accurate, depending on what you're going through. But I do use it. And the other thing you can use is, I've got a screw punch. This baby is worth its weight in gold. You've got this part here. You've got all your dies, the punch dies. You just put it in. I mean, this is about £6 on Amazon. I mean, with all the pieces, all the different size punch holes, punches. You put it in, and then you literally just screw down through using one of these poly mats. I got this from Tandy Leather. This again was about £6 for this, and because you'd ruin your cutting mat, you have to have one of these, and you can also ruin you blunt your punches if you're doing it onto wood, for example, like some people do. You really need one of these because it allows it to go into it, so it doesn't, allow it to get blunted. So this is also a fantastic tool, but for today, for this purpose at least, I'm going to use this hole punch. I will say that, of course, if it was too far down, then I would have to use the screw punch, because it wouldn't reach, but it just does, only just. Okay, so I've punched the holes. Now, with the I showed you the hole punch with this. You've also got the I'm trying to think of the word. I suppose the press. You've got your hole punch to punch your holes, and then you've got these that you use to fix these together. The fixings. Again, I don't use them. I've got my lovely green machine and the dies, and these cost £15, like all the die sets tend to cost. And you have two lots, so you've 4 parts. You've got this set to do the flat head with the thicker die, thicker, I don't know what you call it. And then you've got these ones which connect. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm trouble picking them up. These, the prongs. So I take out my rivet press and decide which one I'm putting on first. Okay, sorry about that. I had to go off because I dropped this one and it rolled away and I couldn't find it. So, screwed it in. And now we get the one with the longer prong. And we put that through from the back to the front. And then the one with the shorter prong on top of it. And then I need to turn this around because I have to do it this way round. So I beg your pardon, turning my back on you. And then you want to make sure that it's over that prong that's sticking up and press down. Ooh. And that's it attached. That's simple. And then do the same on the other side to attach the other one. Oh, it's come out. Right, put that back over. And put the little one on top. And press. So that's those two parts done, and then we have to swap the dies over. And this one we want the round flat one there, and then that one and the top. You have to excuse my dog. You can hear children outside playing and he's going absolutely bananas because he wants to be out there playing with them. Okay, and now we need to put the nice flat shiny side in from the back. And then put this one on top. And there we have it. This one's connected. And do the same again on the other side. The hole didn't quite just take out all the fabric, so I just need to poke it through. So sometimes you have to fiddle about to get it correct. You can also try and seat that in there. Sometimes it will stay, sometimes it won't. And then press down. Oh, and there we have it. So they're connected. And next thing we're going to do is to add the connectors. I'm just going to show you and that's what the bag looks like with the studs in place. It's a nice shape, isn't it? I shall get all the pieces ready for the connectors and come back. Right, now it's time to measure for the, if you're adding these top edges, which I love, there's different ways to measure, but what I've done is I've laid the bag down and I've done the press studs so that I know I don't want to put the connectors past the bend. So I've closed it up to get an exact measurement. And then measuring across from the folded edge to the other folded edge, I've got 10.5 inches. So I marked a 5¼ inch central point, and then I marked, should I say, 3/4 inch either side. So this is 1.5 inch distance. And to double check it, I measured it against the handmade label, and it is in the right place. It's central to the label. Yeah, just double checking that. Yeah, so there's various ways you can do it. You could get this part and use this to mark the holes and put your little dots in the holes. Or what I like to do is just use my chalk marker to go over these holes, because using this will give you a more accurate mark for where you want to put the holes. And then you want to lining up with the line there and with the top. It's difficult for me to see doing it this way, so I'm going to lay it down again, sorry. But and then you've got very splodgy marks, but the splodgy is where you want to put the holes, which are quite close to the top. So I'm going to mark that again on the other side, just to, because of the way I was doing it, I feel it was a bit messy. It's much easier to do it this way. I feel I have more control. So from the edge going across, that's better, that much neater. So that's where you've got your holes that you want to press. They are quite high up, and you're obviously going to go through the top stitching that you've done. So if you want to, you could use some fray check first, but I'm a bit concerned that it would mark the vinyl, so I'm going to see how we get on with just putting the holes in. I'm hoping it'll be okay. I'm really quite nervous because the last bag, I've already done this once and I made such a mess of it I had to redo it. So I'm actually really nervous about doing this. I just want to make sure I'm... Right, that's it. No going back now. I've done the first hole. Second hole. third hole, and the final hole. I'm not sure if it did go all the way through or not, so I'm just going to check now. It just felt like it didn't connect all the way through. Well, it did, but it didn't remove the vinyl, so I'm just going to do that. I'm going to come back in a minute when I've picked out all the vinyl holes. Okay, I've taken the vinyl out of the holes, and we've got now 4 complete holes. And then what we need to do is push the prongs of the connector into these holes. I used the largest hole on my punch. I don't know if you can see it. Just to make sure. I can undo the press studs for now. I'm sorry, you're probably not getting a very good view whilst I'm doing this part. Oh, goodness me, I'm not putting the back plate on. Do you know, I knew there was something. I'm thinking, look, this is going to look a bit odd. And it certainly would. So, this is why you really need to have no foam in the top part, because you wouldn't get it all screwed in, because these screws are not very long at all. I never screw it completely down. Like when you attach it and it screws to anything, you should just do... Oh, it's come out anyway. It didn't go all the way in. I must admit, this is when I cheat and get my husband to do it, because I do struggle a bit with my hands with screwing them into the holes. Seems to be going in quite nicely though. If you want to use glue, you can. I don't, because it can make a mess. It can seep out and it could absolutely ruin your bag. But if you want to take that chance, by all means do. I do find that the screws do tend to hold well and do the job they're designed to do. That's what I love about Emmaline hardware. It's very strong and durable. Okay, so I've got them all sort of partly screwed in. So now I'm going to fully screw them in. And there we have it. And that's the first one screwed on. I've still got the plastic covering, which I'm leaving on for now because I don't want to get it scratched. So that's how you do them. I'm going to do the other ones and we'll come back and show you the end result. So here's the top edge connectors attached. I think they look gorgeous. The thing I am surprised at though is that I've gone to put the straps on and they don't fit. They're too wide. So you have to squeeze them in and they don't look very good like that, do they? So I've got to remake the straps, which did surprise me considering this pattern is to go with these anchors. So I was surprised that they're 1/4 of an inch too wide. So we need to make 3/4 of an inch wide straps. Therefore, doing a 3-inch wide piece of vinyl rather than 4 inches. I'm going to have to put a note on the video from earlier to say that. So I'm going to have to redo some straps now. So I shall do them and return. Okay, so I've made the straps narrower, so they're now 3/4 of an inch wide, and I've made them 20 inches long. And what we need to do is mark them up for attaching them to the bag. Now what I did was I marked at the 4-inch along and did a line, a chalk line, and I did it on each end, and then I also marked for the rivets, and I did one that was 1/2 inch along in the centre and then 1 inch along in the centre, and I did it on all the sides. And I started by using my punch to put the holes in, and then I fold it over and put it at the line, and then using my chalk marker put them in, and I've got the marks for once they're folded. Now the reason I do it this way is once it's on the connectors, it can be a bit difficult with the connectors in the way and so on, whereas marking it up this way, it's all done and ready for marking. Do the same the other end. Fold over again. So that's the holes marked, and to show you, zoom out. Just gonna move the camera a little bit that way. Okay, so put the strap through, and get my rivet press that weighs a ton. And then push the rivets through the one side. Sorry, it's difficult to see what I'm filming at the same time as doing the job. Obviously these professionals have cameramen and directors and so on, and it's just me on my own, so doing everyone's job. So, oops, I dropped that one. Just trying to put the rivet heads on, ready. Right, and then that one. This one came off. And two. So that's that one side done. And then putting them in. I'm just having a look. I'm almost putting it in the wrong way there. That's it. So Oops, I put the I put the back of the rivet on but didn't put the strap together. That was a bit silly, wasn't it? Right, let's put that one together first, and then we'll do the other one after. You just have to sort of wiggle it around until you find the right spot. That's it. And then the last one on this side. And there we have it. We've got the straps on the one side. And I'm going to do the other side and come back and show you the final results. And here we have Miss Maggie by Emmaline Bags. I am really pleased with the result, finally. So I look forward to seeing all of your bags in the group. Have fun stitching, and don't forget, feel free to ask any questions anytime. Bye.